My name's Angelo, and welcome to We Want Picks. I'm going to break down the entire UFC Vegas 82 fight card, giving you my picks, predictions, and DraftKings plays. But before I do, let's take a look at the wild success that our premium members have been having. This past weekend at UFC 295, we crossed the $400,000 in winnings threshold. Took us up to about $402,000 in DraftKings winnings from premium members alone. These are people that sign up for our premium membership, use our tools, built some entries, made some money, and then when they won, shared those tickets in our free Discord to show us and the world how well they have done. Over $402,000 in winnings, and I say this every week, but they have the sharpest community in the game, and these winnings are from the last couple of months. This is not years. This isn't the aggregate of everything we've ever done. This is a few months worth of premium member winnings in DraftKings, over $400,000. And you can join them by going to WeWantPicks.com. Just click Become a Member at the top. It's only freaking $10 a month. And you're going to unlock all sorts of tools, data, information, insight. You are going to get the best DraftKings ownership projections in the game. That is a mathematical fact. And you're also going to get the DraftKings Optimizer. This will build up to 150 different DraftKings lineups for you. And the most important thing is the data that's inside of it. It is a fancy calculator. That's all it is. But this fancy calculator needs good, accurate projections so that it can build you solid lineups. We have literally the best ownership projections in the game. That's not conjecture. That's not just me saying crazy shit to sell premium membership. That is a 100% statement, fact. It has been proven. Compare us to Awesemo, Roto Grinders, and all of the others out there. Anyway, those ownership projections, the scoring projections, all of that are loaded into the system ahead of time. You click a few buttons, it builds a lineup for you. And if you want to know how to use it, just click this pretty little video down here, and this will walk you through exactly how to use the lineup optimizer. But if we go to Daily Fantasy and we go to DraftKings Plays, you're also going to get a full breakdown of who we think should be in your cash core lineups, who should be in your big, large tournament core lineups, what's some live underdogs that you should consider. And this cheat sheet will be populated every Friday by 6 p.m. We got to wait for the weigh-in, see if there's scratches, because that obviously adjusts all the numbers. All of this, so much more. You also saw FanDuel content, other prop games as well. That's all available in one single amazing package for only $10 a month. Just go to WeWantPicks.com. Click Become a Member at the top. Let's go ahead, break down this card. We've had two scratches, two fights dropped in the last couple of days, but they have new opponents. Everything is loaded right here, ready to go. As always, we will start at the bottom, work our way to the top. We have 14 fights, which is always an absolute bear. Opening up this card, we have Charles Johnson taking on Rafael Estevam. Charles Johnson, he's a good striker. He's a very accomplished fighter. This guy has multiple LFA titles. Didn't just happen into one of them. He had 3 LFA titles. He's a very good striker. He's got good takedown defense, even though I'm about to tell you he was taken down 11 times in his last fight. But he has good takedown defense, great get-up game, good accurate striking. His problem with his striking is while they're high volume, not a ton of power, and he doesn't really have a sense of urgency, right? He'll piece you up, but if he's starting to lose, he's starting to back up, starting to give up some minutes, some of that, he doesn't change anything. He continues to fight that way. That's why I think he's an underdog here, because he's going to be the much better striker. He's going to be the more well-rounded fighter. He's going to have more experience, all the things, but he's fighting Rafael Estevam. Rafael Estevam is a high-pressure grappler. No data here. This is his UFC debut. A couple of failed UFC debut attempts back in April and then May. So hopefully this will stick together. It doesn't fall apart in the scale. But Rafael Estevam is a pressure grappler. He's going to come forward. He's going to throw bombs to close that gap. And then once he's nice and close, he's going to take you down and then go from there. It's that simple. He is the favorite here. And I think it's literally because we just watched Charles Johnson get taken down 11 times by Cody Durden. When he fought Muhammad Mokaev, he was taken down more than 11. It was 12 or 13 times. I just think there's a difference between Rafael Estevam's wrestling and Cody Durden's wrestling. I think I'm full flipping my pick here. My original pick was Rafael Estevam, and it was because I couldn't trust Charles Johnson to pick up the pace. If he gives up a bunch of takedowns, I can't trust him to come out swinging or change anything. He just, from the first round to the last round, he fights exactly the same no matter what's happening. There is no, I'm down 2 rounds, I need to change something up. It doesn't exist in his mind, or we haven't seen that yet. All that being said, I do think Charles Johnson is a phenomenal underdog. I think he can get it done. I do not think he should be in your DraftKings lineup. He does not score well. Let's go back to him very quickly. You're going to see one stoppage here. That's the only. Jimmy Flick was coming back after years away, and Jimmy Flick's terrible. But look at this, 83 points on a Zumagulov win. The rest of them were losses. This was a very close fight. Even if you give him 30 more points here, let's say you say he should have won the Osborne fight, give him 30 more points, 64 in a win. He just doesn't, he's never worth his salary. Rafael Estevam, on the other hand, is actually probably going to be worth that $8,200 because if he gets his wrestling going and he has the Cody Durden, the Muhammad Makayev, and he has 10, 11 takedowns, this dude is going to score an incredible amount of points and he's some solid value. Then we have Nikolas Motta versus Trey Ogden. This is another interesting matchup. Nikolas Motta is a very good striker. He's got good power. He's insanely fast. He's very explosive. He's athletic. He moves well. He's got that speed. And he mixes up his striking pretty well. His takedown defense, as it sits today, is 100%. He has not been taken down in the UFC. And because he trusts his takedown defense, he really lets his hands go. He lets his feet go. And he's pretty creative in his striking. He is the slight favorite here. He's taking on Trey Ogden. Trey Ogden is an athletic grappler. So he is going to want to get this to the ground. But because I'm calling him a grappler, you may assume, oh, he's just going to shoot. No, he has some power in his hands. If you go through his fight tape, you'll see that some of these submission wins were actually set up because he dropped people with his hands. So he's got some decent power. He's definitely a grappler. His takedowns are really well timed. He does a nice job of lowering his level and shooting actual shots as his opponents overcommit and as they come in. So, you know, it's an interesting matchup. It's a tight matchup. I don't see Trey Ogden winning this fight. And even if he does win, I mean, here's a perfect example. 65 points. He's not busy enough in the striking. His takedowns aren't relentless, meaning he'll get a takedown, maybe two, but it's not nonstop wrestling pressure. So Trey Ogden doesn't make any sense at $7,900. And I don't think Nikolas Motta makes sense either because he's a very good striker. He's got some decent power. He can do some stuff with it. I mean, look what he just did to Cameron Van Camp a year ago. But Cameron Van Camp has a negative chin. Like, think about what kind of chin you would want in a fight. And then the exact opposite of that is Cameron Van Camp's chin. And Nikolas Motta, you know, even if he finds his spots, Trey Ogden's actually a pretty tough, durable guy. So I'm not going to have either one of these guys in my lineups. We don't need to force anything. And we have 28 different fighters to choose from. Then we have Ailin Perez, little juiced, $8,600. And she is taking on Pudilova. What I love about Ailin Perez is this fight. Her last fight, 138 points. 12 minutes, more than 12 minutes of control time. We had not seen that wrestling pressure out of her, but she showed up. Like a UFC debut, she lost to Stephanie Egger. A little bit embarrassing, right? She twerked and did all the bullshit, and then she just got her ass kicked. But a couple canceled fights later, she finally got on the books. Yes, it was against Ashley Evans-Smith, who's not amazing, who was coming off a long layoff, but it doesn't matter who the opponent was. What I saw in the Ailin Perez fight was somebody with insane cardio, great pressure, and who is willing to just shoot, wrestle, and stick to that game plan. Her top control absolutely blows, which is why she got 10 takedowns. If she had good control, she would have had 5 takedowns, 3 takedowns, not 10. And Jacob was clowning her, saying she should have finished Smith, and she didn't. That to me is crazy. Not everybody's a finisher. But what she did show us is that she can absolutely put points on the board, and that's the game here. 138 points. And this could be a very similar fight. These 10 takedowns set a divisional record. She's the all-time takedown queen in a single fight for this division. She's taking on Lucie Pudilova. She's a striker. A powerful striker at that. She wants to circle. She'll throw heavy 1-2s. She doesn't have a ton of volume, but she stays busy enough, and she throws with power. Just recently, her last couple of fights, she started to work in takedowns. We saw 2 against Janana and 2 against Jocelyn Edwards. She won that Jocelyn Edwards fight. That was a bad decision. So add 30 points to this. She would have scored 76 points. When she does well in her only UFC win, she, look, 107 points. That's not terrible, especially for $7,600. But I think this is an Ailin Perez fight all day long. If we get even 75% of the wrestling, of the pressure, of the cardio that Ailin Perez showed us in her last fight, she'll put up over 100 points in this fight, and I think she's priced pretty well for us to get that kind of score. I mean, $8,600 for somebody who just put up 138 points in DraftKings makes sense. I do like Ailin Perez here. and she will be in my lineup. Then we have Lucas Alexander taking on Jeka Saragih, $9,300. This is a steep price to pay. And if you're going to spend that money, you got to be hoping for a finish. He was supposed to fight at UFC Sao Paulo a few weeks ago against David Onama. That fight dropped, so then they shipped his ass to America and said, you're going to fight here, and you're going to fight Jeka. A lesser opponent, also a lesser venue, but Lucas Alexander's a powerful striker. He likes to showcase, so he'll spin, he'll do some fun stuff. He kicks really well, and he uses that to manage range. He'll explode when he's inside the pocket. He does also have some grappling. It's mostly defensive, but he does such a good job stuffing the takedowns, working the underhook, spinning, taking your back. Then all of a sudden, you shot a takedown, and he ends up on top. His defensive wrestling, his defensive jiu-jitsu is very, very solid. But he is a striker. This dominant win over Steve Peterson, while it did not score very well, he did throw a ton of kicks and controlled that entire fight, including with a knockdown. And then here's the problem. He had a knockdown. That's 10 points. If we remove the knockdown, this is a 66-point win. And removing the knockdown is not a crazy thing to say. I mean, not everybody gets knockdowns in every single fight. But he is fighting Jeka Saragih. Jeka just lost against Anheliger, who we now know can be knocked out if you bark at him like a dog. He just freezes up, has no idea what to do. Jeka should have barked. But he didn't bark. What he did do was get taken down over and over again. Showed that he can't defend takedowns whatsoever. But Jeka Saragih is insanely powerful. He has one-punch knockout power. He has found it in a lot of these 13 wins. He's going to come forward. He'll bomb away. But he also has some other skills. He can wrestle. He's got jiu-jitsu. The problem is, like so many others, he knocks some people out, feels good about it, thinks he can knock everybody out. So then he starts headhunting. Lucas Alexander should absolutely win this fight. He should be able to come forward, light up Jeka technique-wise, chop down those legs, manage the range, come in, find the head, potentially knock Jeka out. I don't know if I'm going to spend the... So Lucas is the pick, very clear. I don't see Jeka winning this fight outside of finding that big power, which he has found before. Lucas is going to be the pick here, but I just showed you he doesn't score that well. So in order for Lucas Alexander to be worth the money, we need Jeka Saragih to fold like a lawn chair. And yeah, he just got taken down and beat up against Anheliger, who we now know is soft as hell. But I don't know if I'm going to spend the $9,300 on Lucas Alexander. I'm insanely confident that he's going to win. But confidence in somebody winning and throwing them in your lineup are two different things. I'll probably look at it a little closer. He'll be in one or two lineups because, I mean, Lucas could absolutely stop Jeka here. But if I'm building a safe cash entry, I might spend that money elsewhere. Then we have Mick Parkin. A couple of heavyweights here. We got Mick Parkin taking on UFC newcomer Caio Machado. Mick Parkin made his UFC debut against Jamal Pogues. You can see here, good volume, 95 significant strikes, 0 control time whatsoever, and he only threw 98 strikes, which means pretty much every single strike he threw was significant. A significant strike is ruled a strike at range, or obviously with a bunch of power. And that's what Mick does. He manages the range. He wants to pick you apart on the outside. If he does come in close, he's literally going to lean on you and wear on your shoulders and hold you and slow down the entire pace to where he wants to fight. And then he will take you down if he has that opportunity. He's pretty well-rounded. I mean, he's got solid BJJ. He will shoot more takedowns than most heavyweights. He will also chase submissions, which doesn't always work out for him. But, man, I hate to keep saying this, but Mick Parkin at $9,200 seems a bit expensive. But there are some red flags with his opponent. He's taking on Caio Machado. Caio Machado, I think he's a pretty well-rounded guy. There is more than one clip of him on his back mounted looking like a bitch. I think he's a pretty well-rounded guy, frankly. He's this new generation of heavyweights, so he's not massive. His nickname's Bigfoot. He's not massive. He's about 250-ish, and they didn't weigh in yet, so I'm going to be way off and whatever. But he's not a massive, tremendous guy. He's a good-sized guy that is athletic. He's got good footwork. He moves pretty well. He's fast. He's not like this lumbering, massive, old-school heavyweight that like Tim Sylvia, that's Ben Rothwell, that's just going to lumber forward. He's fast. He moves. He's athletic. He's going to back up while throwing counters. He'll push forward while throwing jabs. He's got good clinch work, good takedowns. And I think his BJJ is underrated. The red flag, though, is, as I mentioned, there's more than one clip of him being fully mounted in fights. A lot of people say, oh my God, how could you watch this Contender Series fight and think he's going to win? Blah, blah. Yeah, it wasn't great, but he won. Did he not? So I think, personally, this is a close heavyweight fight. Mick Parkin being as big of a favorite as he is seems a little crazy to me. Caio Machado is a dangerous guy. He's an athletic guy. He's got jiu-jitsu. He's got strength. He's got all the things. So to me, this is a pretty close, sloppy-ass heavyweight fight. I am not going to have Mick Parkin in my lineup at $9,200. Caio Machado is a punt play. You have a large tournament entry. You're building 150 of those lineups. You should have some exposure to Caio Machado at $7,000. I think it's just a sloppy fight. And I think Caio is a decent prospect with some solid striking, wrestling, BJJ. Heavyweights can be hittable. Caio Machado can hit. Do not put either one of these guys in your cash entry. Absolutely not. Then we have Christian Leroy Duncan. He has himself a brand new opponent, Denis Tiuliulin. Christian Leroy Duncan, he's a fun striker. He's going to come forward, high pressure. He has 7 finishes and 8 wins, a bunch of regional championships. He is a powerful guy. And when he comes forward, he has that pressure. He's got speed. He's a little creative with his striking. He'll throw anything. He'll spin. He'll jump. He'll do all the things. The problem is he doesn't know when to turn that off. Oh, he could also work in some takedowns if he needs to. But he doesn't know when to turn off the crazy. And if we look at this loss to Armen Petrosyan just 1-2'd his way to a win. Armen Petrosyan just kept it tight, fought with solid, clean technique, and he beat the shit out of Leroy Duncan. Leroy's looking all stupid, smiling, spinning in a circle like a top about to take off. And Armen Petrosyan was just lighting his face up. It made no sense. It showed very poor fight IQ. Not fight IQ in the sense, maybe situational awareness is a better word. Not fight IQ in the sense that he's striking when he should be grappling. Like, not that. Like, how many times have we seen fighters just do dumb shit in a fight? It's not that his technique was bad or he was doing poor technique things. He was just not taking the fight serious. And that's a hard guy to trust because $8,500 is actually an incredible price. For a guy with his talent, his ability, the fact that he can wrestle if he needs to, the fact that he's fun, he spins, he's got power, all of that stuff makes him very, very dangerous. And $8,500 is a great price. But can we trust him to not do stupid crap if it's not going his way? He's taking on Denis Tiuliulin. Denis Tiuliulin is stepping up on like 3 days' notice. They just announced this fight the other day. He's also a striker. He's going to come forward. He's always looking for a finish. He has no problem getting into a slugfest. He's going to keep fights ugly. He's going to keep them fast-paced. He's going to try to break people. He's going to try to catch them. He has legit power in his hands. No grappling, though. He can be taken down. He can be held down. He's a fish out of water on the ground. The takedown defense is at 69%, but once you get him to the ground, you can kind of do what you want. Park showed us that. Rodriguez showed us that. Yeah, he smoked Pickett, but Pickett absolutely blows. But outside of Pickett, this is going to be his first fight that we really have seen another striker, that he can showcase that technique and not get sucked into defending takedowns the whole time. I think the short notice is going to be a problem. I'm hoping Leroy Duncan learned his lesson, right? Maybe I shouldn't spin around like an idiot, and I should focus on trying to win this fight and not trying to pretend that I'm being so cool. So I am going to shoot my shot with Leroy Duncan in my lineup. $8,500 is a discount. The reason he's only $8,500, if you don't know, and you probably know this, but DraftKings releases all of the fighters and all the pricing at the same time. So they released Christian Leroy Duncan with his original opponent at $8,500. Then that opponent dropped. They gave him a new opponent. In real life, in betting odds, Leroy Duncan is a massive favorite, a minus 500 favorite. But DraftKings pricing-wise, I don't know if I could equate the pricing to numbers. Maybe he's a 200 favorite. But the price is already established. DraftKings does not change the existing fighter's price. You could be a 30-1 underdog, and then your opponent drops, and then they give you an actual infant child to fight, and you would still be a 30-1 underdog in the pricing department. So I think we got to take this for the gift that it is and throw Leroy Duncan in our lineup at $8,500. I don't know if you can hear my dog snoring. Scout. Hey, Scout. He's old and fat. He doesn't give a shit. I don't know if the microphone's picking it up, but that snore is loud. Then we have Jose Johnson, and he's taking on Chad Anheliger. Jose Johnson is a long, rangy Muay Thai striker. He's going to use that length well. He wants to come forward, control the center, use his speed, use the length. He's got versatile striking. He'll work the teep kicks in. He's got nice clinch work, traditional boxing to sort of touch up his opponents. He can work in some takedowns with some nice trips. He also has some decent takedown defense, and his raw jiu-jitsu is very solid as well. He is coming off a UFC debut loss against Damon Blackshear. It was a twister. And at the time, it was like, oh my God, a twister. Jose Johnson sucks. And then Damon Blackshear twisted somebody else. Multiple twisters coming out of this guy. And I think we realized, oh, okay, Damon Blackshear is very, very good. He's very good. So this loss is not that bad of a loss. Jose Johnson remains a long, rangy striker with solid jiu-jitsu and okay takedown defense. He is taking on Chad Anheliger. The concern here is you see this 2022, and nothing since then. It's a little over a year since Chad fought. He did lose to Haley Alatang because he could not defend the takedowns. That was the problem. He got taken down. He has 3 fights in the UFC, if you include the Contender Series. And in those 3 fights, he has given up 9 takedowns, 2 of which happened in this Alatang-Haley fight. But I do think Chad's a decent prospect, even though he's 36 years old. He has powerful striking, solid BJJ if it gets to the ground. He has a really nice pace, and he hits very hard. His takedown defense is just okay. I mentioned it's failed him 9 times in the UFC, but I think Chad could potentially have success in this fight. I think he can come forward, close that distance, get past the range, get past the teep kicks, and get to Jose's chin. I'm not going to trust that in my DraftKings lineup. I'm not going to bet on that. But I also am not going to bet on Jose Johnson, who's also winless in the UFC. Well, also, but Chad has a win. But who's winless in the UFC. Yes, it was Damon Blackshear. Yes, he's very good. But until I see Jose Johnson actually showcase that skill set in an octagon, I can't spend this kind of DraftKings money on him. So I think it's a close fight that could go either way. If Jose continues to manage that range well and is throwing up the teeps and keeping Chad really far away, it should be somewhat straightforward to him. But Chad is a tough guy with a chin. I think he can grit his way in, work his way in, get to the chin, stay busy, work on Jose, and potentially get something done. So no Chad in my lineup, even though I think $7,500 is a little undervalued there. That takes us to Jonathan Pearce versus Joanderson Brito. This is a very good fight. I've said this in every breakdown I've done, and I'll probably say it a few more times before the end of the year. The UFC is contractually obligated to offer every single fighter under their contract 3 fights a year. So what ends up happening is, as the year goes on, they go through their schedule and they go, oh shit, we only have 4 cards left, and we didn't offer so-and-so a fight. And then we get these random cards with a bunch of random people, like Chad Anheliger, who hasn't fought in a year. But this fight and a few others on this card are actually spectacular. Jonathan Pearce is a very good prospect. He's a solid wrestler. He sets a nice pace, both on his feet and on the ground. He's got good takedowns, good BJJ. He's averaging almost 6 takedowns per fight, which we love when we're building DraftKings lineups. In 18 professional fights, he has only been to a decision 3 times. He lays it all out. He comes forward. He stays busy, and he's coming off this win over Darren Elkins, where he put up 104 points. He's only $8,400. He put up 145 points, 96 points, 123 points, 134 points. The only time he didn't put up real points was all the way back in 2019, where actually somehow old-ass Joe Lozon got it done. But Jonathan Pearce, while I hate the nickname, I don't know why I hate the JSP, but maybe because I've been watching UFC since inception, and ripping off GSP's nickname is a bit much. But I think Jonathan Pearce is insane value at $8,400 when we look at what he does historically. We look at the control time. We look at the takedowns. I mean, look at this guy's body of work. He is fighting Joanderson Brito. Joanderson Brito is one of these scarier guys in this division. He has absolute cannons for hands. He will bomb away. He is fast. He's athletic. He will shoot his own takedowns. He's averaging 4 takedowns per fight. It's not the 6 that Jonathan Pearce is averaging, but it's still a ton. And he's by far the better striker in this matchup and insanely dangerous on the feet. I am still going to pick Jonathan Pearce. I am going to put Jonathan Pearce in my lineup because that price is incredible for a guy that I think can get 6 takedowns. And it all comes down to Joanderson Brito's takedown defense. And while on paper his takedown defense seems decent, I think he's going to get taken down. We've seen him taken down in the past. We've seen him get taken down multiple times in fights. I think it'll be a good back and forth fight, but I'm going to go with the guy that I can trust to shoot over and over again instead of the guy, Joanderson Brito, who I just need to bomb. I'm not going to count on a guy to hopefully land a big punch when a takedown's coming. So Jonathan Pearce is going to be the pick. $8,400 seems like a great price to pay for a guy that puts up over 100 points very consistently. Then we have Uros Medic. He has himself a new opponent as well. He's a good, solid striker who got himself a brand new opponent on a couple of days' notice. Uros Medic, clean, technical guy. He's not a wild striker. Clean, technical strikes. He comes out fast. He is loose. A 100% finish rate in those 9 wins. He has speed. He has power. And he has legit killer instinct. If he thinks you're rocked or if he thinks something's going on, boom. Comes right at you, lays it all out there. He smoked Matt Semmelsberger here. Knocked him down, had a takedown, all the significant strikes, all the things. Uros Medic, $8,900 is a lot of money to spend, especially because he's an underdog. But keep in mind, they don't change the prices when you get a new opponent. And as I mentioned, he has a short notice opponent. Myktybek Orolbai, that is how this is pronounced, is stepping up on crazy short notice as well, right? Couple of days ago, this fight was announced when Uros Medic lost his original opponent. Uros Medic's original opponent was a striker. Myktybek Orolbai is a grappler. He's going to entertain the striking. He will hang around for a little bit, and then he's going to fully commit to the wrestling. His striking is a little bit stiff. It's wide. He can be hittable, but his wrestling and grappling pressure are nonstop. He's got plenty of cardio, plenty of power, a decent chin, and he can set a pace. I always like to see fighters' losses when I'm breaking down tape. Myktybek has one single loss, and in that loss, he was still competitive. He was losing. He didn't get the wrestling going the way that he wanted to, but he continued to come forward. He continued to shoot shots. He continued to try to win that fight. It's the opposite of what we said about Charles Johnson when we broke that fight down earlier. Charles Johnson has there's not another speed. There's not oh God, I'm losing, let me change something. Myktybek is just nonstop pressure trying to make something happen, even though it's not necessarily going his way. He's a good prospect. I think he's the better overall fighter in this matchup. So it's going to come down to how you feel about short notice. It's going to come down to how hittable actually is he. We have seen him get cracked on the regional scene. Uros Medic's been cracked as well. I think this is an insanely close fight. $8,400. So they priced him as the favorite here. And if we take a look at Uros Medic, $8,900. I think he has to be your fade. Because $8,900 was against his original opponent. This is a different opponent, a more well-rounded opponent. A guy that will throw bombs, a guy that will wrestle, will grapple. So you can't have Uros Medic in your lineup at $8,900. And then Myktybek Orolbai, $8,400. Favorite pricing for a short notice guy. It's a tricky fight. I'm probably not going to have either one in my lineup. I don't see Uros getting a knockout, so he's definitely never going to be worth the $8,900. And then Myktybek, if he gets his grappling going, he could potentially put up some big points. So if you're going to consider either one of these guys in your lineup, Myktybek Orolbai is probably going to be the way to go. We have Amanda Ribas taking on Luana Pinheiro. Amanda Ribas at $9,000 in this matchup? No, absolutely not. Show me when she was worth that money. Vivian Araujo? Fine. Outside of that, I mean, I guess she's been worth it a couple of times. Paige Van Zandt, Marcos, Dern. She actually beat Mackenzie Dern, but we know how trash Mackenzie is now. But I guess my point being is Amanda Ribas is a well-rounded fighter. She started her career as a grappler, worked in the striking, and now she's well-rounded. At 125 pounds, she was strong, pushing people around, a little bit of a bully. Now she's coming down to 115 after getting smoked. She's actually doing pretty well in this Barber fight. A couple of takedowns, a little bit of control time, then got caught on her feet. But after getting knocked out, she said, let me go back down to 115. And I get it, right? It makes sense. But what's a little concerning is she was just finished by KO. And she's fighting Luana Pinheiro. Luana Pinheiro is one of the most dangerous women at this weight class. She just is. Like, yes, we saw some questionable stuff with Marcos. The Hughes win, that's expected. The Waterson-Gomez fight, you could argue she lost that fight. She went 0 for 5 on takedowns, landed fewer total strikes. But Luana Pinheiro is very dangerous. She has good, powerful striking. She's got good takedowns, even though she couldn't get him going in her last fight. Aggressive BJJ. I do think Amanda Ribas wins this fight because she's the more well-rounded fighter. Luana's going to be the more powerful fighter. Probably the better offensive wrestler, maybe not defensively. And she's going to swing wild and try to make something happen. And she may connect on a depleted 115-pound Amanda Ribas. But I'm not going to shoot that shot on either side. Amanda Ribas is not worth $9,000. Luana Pinheiro is pretty tough. Not somebody she's just going to get out of there. And Luana Pinheiro could potentially knock out Amanda Ribas, but I'm not going to throw $7,200 at that in a conservative lineup to make that happen. So I'm not going to have either one of these women in my lineup. Amanda's the more well-rounded fighter. Amanda should win this fight, but she's not going to be worth that money because I don't see a finish, and I don't see there being like 30 takedowns here because Luana's very dangerous on the ground. So I could see Amanda getting a takedown or two, and then Luana threatening with some stuff, and then Amanda being like, I'm just going to dance around on my feet and throw a million jabs. So probably not going to have Amanda in my lineup at $9,000, but she actually makes more sense than Luana because if Amanda becomes a Nurmagomedov, all of a sudden she actually would be worth that money. Then we have Peyton Talbot making his official UFC debut. Big, highly touted prospect. And he's taking on Nick Aguirre. This guy is a very real prospect. Let's put it this way. It's only his 7th fight ever. He has 0 fights in official UFC. He has a Contender Series win. And they said, let's put him on a main card. Like, that's how much the UFC wants this guy to be something. And I get it. He's a flashy striker. He's got lots of power, lots of movement. He's really tall for the division. He stands tall. He throws out 1-2s at an incredible pace, and then he will find his big shots. He does have decent takedown defense, and if he is taken down, he's busy. He looks to scramble, looks to get himself back up. But if you start breaking down tape, you'll see a fight against Krithon, not a lisp, Krithon Ribas, and it looked like Peyton was going to lose that fight. He ended up finding the finish in the 3rd round, but he was getting taken down. He was getting outworked. And that could be a concern here because Peyton is fighting Nick Aguirre. Nick Aguirre is a grappler. Yes, he's coming off a short notice loss to Dan Argueta, but Dan Argueta is a beast. Nick Aguirre was undefeated before this fight, right? 7-1. The one is the Dan Argueta short notice UFC debut. And while undefeated, it was all finishes. Barely made it out of the first round of any of those fights. And you're like, this guy's a killer. And then you look at his record, you're like, oh. The combined record of his opponents at the time was 11-29. But he is a wrestler. He is a grappler. He's going to come out, throw a few punches, and immediately start shooting. He's going to shoot nice, clean doubles. If he gets you to the ground, he's going to work through positions. He's going to be striking the entire time. He doesn't have takedown defense, but he's not going to need takedown defense in this fight. But he does have slick BJJ. He's always looking to make something happen. I think Peyton Talbot's going to win this fight. I am more willing to take a chance on him in DraftKings with salary than I am in real money with a bet. I do not have any bets on Peyton Talbot, but I do think we can throw him in our lineup here because I think he can finish Nick Aguirre. I think the UFC wants that. I think he can do it, and I think he can do it, maybe drop him once or twice, then finish him, then be worth that money. So Peyton Talbot's going to be the clear pick here, but he is only 6-0. He's not 10-0. He's relatively untested, but look at Nick Aguirre's opponents, who he's beaten, and I think we can sort of trust Peyton to be the much better fighter in this matchup. Then we have a battle of the nerds. Neither one of these, well, let me walk you through it. A battle of the nerds. Both of these guys are jiu-jitsu guys. They want to be butt scooting. If they can get paid the way they get paid to fight, if they can get paid like that to do jiu-jitsu tournaments, that's what they would do. They're not here to strike. They don't want to actually fight. They are jiu-jitsu guys. And fine. They're very, very similar. Chase Hooper, probably the more well-trained guy. I think he's making progress faster than Jordan Leavitt. We've seen him have some success striking in some of these fights. The Kolaris fight, he had success striking. You're going to see 4 takedowns. His wrestling actually looked good for the first time there too as well. But then if you get in his face and you fight him like a man like Steve Peterson and Steve Garcia did, he has problems. He cannot handle it. I mean, Steve Garcia beat him down. And then Chase Hooper decision Nick Fiore, who he probably should have absolutely smoked. And you could say he smoked him, took him down, reversed him, had a bunch of control time, and he landed strikes at an insane pace. But the reality is, Chase Hooper's only dangerous on the ground, but he is looking to improve. He is getting better in all areas of MMA. He's fighting Jordan Leavitt. Jordan Leavitt is exactly Chase Hooper, but a little older, a little tougher. I don't think his jiu-jitsu is as good as Chase Hooper's, but his wrestling is better. Jordan Leavitt has better wrestling. And if you're a nerd that wants it on the ground, you want to be the guy with the better wrestling. So I actually think Jordan Leavitt can win this fight. $7,400 is a very attractive price. The one and only thing that scares me in this fight, well, it's a couple of nerds, anything could happen, so that's scary. But the one and only thing that really scares me here is Jordan Leavitt is about to have a kid. like literally any minute. And he said, if my wife goes into labor, I'm out of here. So the last thing we need is to have Jordan Leavitt in our lineup. And then 20 minutes before his fight, he gets a text message, I'm in labor. And he books it out of there. He said he would. So that's the last thing we need. So you can't put him in your lineup for that reason. Also, I've got 2 children. And I can tell you the month leading up before birth was not like the most comfortable, relaxing environment at home where if I was a professional athlete, I would be getting the sleep that I need, the training that I need. So all of that being said, I do think no baby, none of that drama, Jordan Leavitt's the pick. He's the better wrestler. All of the other skills are marginally the same. Maybe a little better here, a little better there. But Jordan's going to be the better wrestler, and that's what matters when you got a couple of nerds trying to get it to the ground. But again, I don't trust the baby stuff. I don't even know why he opened his mouth. He should have just kept his mouth shut. But he's telling the world, I'm going to leave. She goes into labor. I'm out of here. And that is concerning. But the $7,400 price point is very, very attractive. Maybe it's like at the very last second, you have a lineup with him. And like 2 minutes before lock, if he hasn't pulled out yet, you submit it. Because then what are the odds there, right? But I think Jordan Leavitt's wrestling is going to be the difference here. Then we have co-main event. Michael Morales taking on Jake Matthews. Michael Morales is all the things. His resume is insane. He is a Muay Thai national champion. He is a wrestling national champion. He's knocking people out. He's submitting people. He's outworking people to a decision. He has looked incredible in every single fight we have seen him in. In this Max Griffin fight, he stuffed every single one of Max's takedowns and then got one of his own. The points were a little concerning, 65 points against a 9,000 salary. But he dominated this fight. It was very clear he was the much better fighter. Did he stop him? No. Did he get a million takedowns? No. But it was just clear we're on 2 different levels here. So I do think Michael Morales wins. I'm very confident in Michael Morales to win. But the difference between Max Griffin and Jake Matthews is Jake Matthews can be finished. Jake Matthews can be touched. He can be submitted. He can be chinned a little bit. Jake Matthews has, while he's very young and has an insane amount of fight experience in the UFC, Jake Matthews has seen all the highs and all the lows, and he's not as consistent. Yes, he just beat Flowers, but this guy was stepping up a weight class as a 155-pounder, moving up to welterweight. He was up a weight class and short notice, and he had some success against Jake. I have to go Michael Morales here all day long. I do think he's going to be worth the money because I think he can finish Jake Matthews, whether he gets some takedowns or he finishes him standing, submits him. I think Michael Morales is light years ahead of Jake Matthews in this fight game. And this might finally be his showcase fight. He's not nearly as famous or as popular as he should be given his skill set. And then we have the main event of the evening. We have Brendan Allen taking on Paul Craig. Brendan Allen isn't expensive. $9,400, but let's look at his last 5 fights. 118, 79, 107, 83, 96. Gotta scratch my eye. Brendan Allen has really put everything together recently. He started as a wrestler, just a straight up grappler. Then he overcorrected. He went from pure grappler to pure striker. And that was a problem. And now finally he is somewhere in the middle where he's mixing in his striking and his grappling well. He's doing all the things he's supposed to be doing. And now, all of a sudden, Brendan Allen is on a 5-fight win streak. Sam Alvey, that was short notice. Jacob Mulcoon, you could argue he lost that fight. I thought he potentially lost that fight. It was taken down a ton. But then Jotko, very clearly beat. Andre Muniz, very clearly beat. Bruno Silva, very clearly beat. All of these fights are fights where he had success striking and grappling. So Brendan Allen, I think he can absolutely win this fight. He is fighting a dangerous Paul Craig. Let's take a look at Paul Craig here. Paul Craig, I mentioned dangerous. Let's take a look. Well, first of all, he just steamrolled Andre Muniz in his middleweight debut. It was his first fight at middleweight. He looked phenomenal. He didn't look sucked out. He didn't look weak. He seemed to have the cardio, still had the power, still had all the things. And keep in mind, Paul Craig's a big guy. At light heavyweight, he did not look small. And frankly, he has a knockout KO, TKO, but let's call it a submission. Basically, he broke Jamal Hill's arm, and Jamal didn't tap, so they call it a TKO. Over the light heavyweight champion of the world who didn't lose his belt. He had to give it up because he got hurt. He beat, where is it? Let's go. Ankalaev, who people are arguing is the best light heavyweight on the planet. He's got wins over a ton of people, but he also has some sketchy losses. Tyson Pedro smoked him. Khalil Roundtree smoked him. Jimmy Crute smoked him. Alonzo Menifield's a quality loss because that dude hits like a truck. But, he's just an inconsistent guy. Johnny Walker out-athleted him. Volkan Ozdemir just took him down, held him down. Paul Craig's insanely dangerous. That win over Ankalaev, he was losing 99% of that fight, and with like 1 minute left, pulled off the submission to get it done. The Jamal Hill fight, he actually won that pretty early. But point being, Paul Craig's not a guy you can count out of a fight. His jiu-jitsu is insanely dangerous. His striking is actually getting much better. But I see Brendan Allen steamrolling him. I think Brendan Allen to be the better striker. I think Brendan Allen's going to be the better wrestler. Paul Craig's going to have the better jiu-jitsu, but Brendan Allen's a black belt, and he's not soft like Andre Muniz. So I could see Brendan Allen coming in here, working in the striking, taking down Paul Craig, beating him up, and either winning a decision with a ton of points or potentially finishing Paul Craig. So I think Brendan Allen's worth that $9,400. And you have to choose between Brendan Allen or Michael Morales. I'll take Brendan Allen with the extra rounds over Michael Morales for your lineup. Guys, that is the breakdown. Become a premium member. Unlock all the tools like the cheat sheet, all the tools like the lineup optimizer that's going to build the lineups for you, and join this wild community of winners. Over $400,000 in DraftKings winnings over the last couple of months. It's not a coincidence. We have one winning ticket and we hang on to that for 10 years. That's nothing. But we have this many winning tickets week in and week out. Over 4 months, $400,000, now averaging $100,000 a month in DraftKings winnings. That is not an accident. That is not a coincidence. And we have the most robust and the most affordable program out there. $10 a month to unlock everything that you need for DraftKings, FanDuel bets, all of it. WeWantPicks.com. Click Become a Member at the top.